Good morning. This is our regular council meeting for December 17th for the town of Rocky Mountain House, and I'm going to call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Has anyone got anything to add to the agenda? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I'd like to add 8.2 Brownlee Emerging Trends Conferences.
Okay, thank you for that. Have we got any more additions to the agenda? Then I'm just looking for a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you. I also make that motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 3.1, delegations. We have Debbie Morrison here to come speak to us. So you can come up to the front here and just make sure you press your the red button, and then it's I have some that you can borrow if I don't know if that'll help or not. Yes.
Thank you for accepting my request to meet with Town Council to discuss my concerns with business owners and employees parking on Main Street while working. As a business owner and resident of Rocky Mountain House and the Clearwater County, I am committed to improving local shopping local and enhancing our visitors' experiences. 3 years ago, I opened up my business on Main Street in a shared fourplex with a common front door. I parked on Main Street for the first 6 months, but chose to park down the street in front of a vacant building that my landlord also owned. During those 6 months, I realized how prime parking was on Main Street. The two other businesses in the same building chose to park in front of our shared front door, along with their employees. I spoke with business owners, asking them to park behind our building or up and down the street in front of a vacant building to free up parking in front of our shared front door. I also shared with them that we have customers in walkers and wheelchairs that shop with us. Neither one took kindly to this suggestion, and they did not change their parking habits. After 6 months, our business was growing, and I made the decision to expand. I rented the empty suite within our building and started parking in the back, myself and my employees. After 2 years of opening, we expanded again to the building next door, our present location. We continued to park in the back. We continued to hear from our customers the struggles they had with finding parking near our store. Some admitted they would circle around the block, then give up finding a parking spot and not stop to shop. We noticed that occasionally our businesses would park in front of our store, as well as continuing to park in front of their shared front door, and businesses across the street were parking in front of their stores. In May of this year, thank you, sorry, I'm getting old. In May of this year, I called the town office and asked who to speak to about my parking concerns. I was directed to the bylaw officers. I called in several times to the bylaw number, asking them to follow up on several vehicles that continue to park on Main Street while working. This led to a lot of frustration as the parking habits never changed. This led to a formal meeting with the town director of community planning and development and a senior bylaw officer. I followed their instructions. After 6 weeks, I gave up as I felt belittled for attempting to change this and insignificant as a business owner. I asked myself, how is it so easy for the town, to clear Main Street for Market on Main every Thursday for 10 weeks? Their answer is the bylaw officer looks up the license plates and they call the owner of the vehicle and they instruct them to move or get towed. After close to 3 years of being frustrated over this, I chose to open this up to the town again November 19th with an email to the town director of community development as prep for locals and visitors to do Christmas shopping within our town. My intention was to free up parking spots by having business owners and employees find other places to park and hold the town accountable to the bylaw number 2023-07, page 7, article 4.1, that discusses parking in time-limited areas. Bylaw 4.2 describes the traffic tag or violation ticket associated with not respecting the limited parking signs, along with subsequent violations. The 3-hour limited parking signs were implemented by the town several years ago. They were included in the beautification project of our downtown area. The posts are cemented into the new sidewalks. I requested a follow-up email from the Town Director of Community Planning and Development in reference to what the bylaw officers did back in May of this year, when I first started this journey. The director did not reply, but had the bylaw officer reply to my email. Once again, I felt belittled and insignificant, but I refused to give up on my concerns when regularly there was 5 to 7 vehicles regularly parked on Main Street for full days. I requested a meeting with the town CAO, and he was available the day I showed up at Town Hall. He took notes as I described my journey of parking concerns. Approximately 8 days after our meeting, he sent me an email describing a pilot project he was implementing after talking with engineering and protective services. The plan was to remove the limited parking signs. December 6th, I replied to the CAO expressing my deep disappointment with his decision to remove the signs and asked that he wait until I meet with Town Council. The signs were removed by town employees December 11th, and a notice to businesses that they should continue to park at the rear of their businesses or elsewhere. These were hand-delivered to businesses on Main Street December 5th. Thus, I'm here meeting with you today to discuss my concerns further with respect to business owners and employees continuing to park on Main Street. I have not phoned other neighboring small towns to discover how they've dealt with parking. I can only imagine there would be information in previous town council meetings approximately 5 to 7 years ago when the town decided to move forward with making these signs and placing them in the traffic bylaws. I come to you with a suggestion. My suggestion is when a business applies for a new license or a renewal, that there is a clause added that states they agree to not park on Main Street, nor their employees when working, and that a bylaw be created to enforce this. Thank you for meeting and hearing my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have questions for Ms. Morrison from Council? Councillor Auld.
Hi, Ms. Morrison. Thanks for coming in. I don't need to know the specific businesses, but the ones that you're referencing, is there back alley parking for those businesses?
For some of them, yes. And the fourplex that I was in, the 2 front ones do not have a door to the back. So the third business that was in that fourplex, there is a door to the back, and that is one business that continues to park right in front of the door, the owner and an employee. So there would be one, so there is some, but not every suite, because there's 4 suites. 2 suites do not have access.
But there is ample parking in the back for those vehicles?
There's 4 available parking spots in the back of that building that have 4 suites in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have more questions? Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Question to Mr. Kroos. Land use bylaw and the bylaw that was included in our package relative to the traffic bylaw. What do the bylaws say in terms of parking on Main Street? If we had 3-hour parking before, we don't have 3-hour parking now, is that part of a bylaw or a policy, or what happened in that whole process? What is the bylaws or paperwork that establishes any of that stuff?
So under the current bylaw, it authorizes administration for decisions on traffic control devices. So I don't know if that answers your question in that aspect. For the 3-hour parking, so that's not established in policy or bylaw. It was brought into place several years ago. Administration decided to try a pilot project to see if those 3-hour parking, if it was removed, does it really affect the parking in downtown? And we would analyze it in 6 months' time from now. Because currently, a 3-hour parking limit doesn't differentiate between a business owner, an employee, a resident, or a tourist. So even under the current bylaw, or with 3-hour parking, if a business owner parked for 3 hours and moved to a different stall for another 3 hours, then they're totally in conformance with the 3-hour parking limit, if that answers your question.
Thank you. It does.
Okay, do we have more questions? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Have we had any response coming from the request, the survey, not the survey, the service request that was put out?
So, Acting Mayor, I'd have to defer that to Ms. Button, who just leaving the room. So, but I haven't been advised of any, so, I mean, it just started, so.
I'm thinking Ms. Button is getting that information for us right now, so we'll just give her a second to get that information for us.
Thank you, Council. The last time I looked, it was evenly split, exactly the number of respondents who were supportive of the town's implementation of the pilot project and the number who were disappointed with the decision. But I haven't checked for anything that may have come in over the weekend and yesterday, so I'll do that now and then provide an update.
Thank you. Okay, more questions? Not seeing any more. Well, thank you very much for coming in and presenting. Obviously, this is a very, dividing topic for sure, and there'll be people on both ends of the spectrum. But thank you for coming in. Thank you for presenting, and we will definitely talk about this more down on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on our agenda, item 3.2, the warming shelter proposal. Yes. Good morning. Okay, so we've got 3 individuals speaking today then. So you'll need to turn your microphones on, and maybe if you can just introduce yourselves first, and then we can go right into the presentation.
Acting Mayor, may I let our delegation know we are live streaming as they weren't here when I made the announcement at the beginning?
That is correct. So we are live streaming as well, so everything you say will be recorded. Thank you.
And if you can just speak into the microphones, so cuddle up when it's your turn to speak. Thank you.
So good morning, I'm Candace Stradecki. I'm representing the Clearwater Regional Housing Foundation this morning, and am really kind of the foreperson for the collective working committee that we have with respect to the proposal for the warming shelter for our community.
And I'm Ken Duma. I'm the pastor at First Christian Reformed Church here in town. I today also represent the ministerial. So all different churches had a meeting and we talked about how we want to support this. So I'm speaking on their behalf.
And I'm David Carter. I'm the Executive Director of the Lord's Food Bank here in Rocky. And I am here because the food bank is putting forth to provide the space at our building for this warming center to take place.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So go ahead and you can start the presentation.
So I do need to say that our appearance here this morning, I believe, was a request from the council. And everybody, I think, has received the revised edition of our proposal. So I think some of the change of information, I guess, is just really to update the council. So we know actually that the province is coming to the table with funding dollars. We don't have the confirmation of that amount, but we know that it has been forwarded. MLA Nixon signed off on that, is in support of this program. The other thing that we know is that the county they are aware. They have discussed it. Unfortunately, because of the amalgamation with the Village of Caroline and the county themselves, they can't make any decisions until after January 14th. So I do believe that there is certainly an interest in supporting the program, but we don't have any commitment of dollars at this point. I think the other thing that we really needed to be able to discuss is coming to some sort of understanding of uh, when we did meet with CAO Dean, some of the discussion was that how you had arrived at the $20,000 as a council, I think, was about a $250 day allowance. And I think that $20,000, if I'm understanding correctly, was the maximum that the council or the town was able to put forward. So when we've looked at that, $250 a day, if we were to take that and divide just into the 20,000, that takes us to 80 days. We know that we're not going to have 80 days in our winter that constitute like -20 or -25. So part of it is a discussion about that. I think sort of understanding from the council's perspective if we have any flexibility around that. And I think the other flexibility that we're seeking is actually around the temperature limit. Our perception is that -25 is actually too cold, and that -20 would be the cutoff, and just seeing where we might be able to have sort of back and forth discussion. Did I miss? No. Okay. So, and then just, I guess, if you had further questions, because as I said at the beginning, that our understanding was that you did have other questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Council questions? Councillor Bald.
Not so much as a question, but maybe clarification. When we, council, brought this initiative forward, it was based under life-saving measures is what I believe is where we were going with this. And if we, even if we do drop that temperature down to say -20, the average was 21 days, being 8 being the least amount and 33 days being the most. So the $20,000 was a limit, what we were willing to commit to the project. But if we didn't get those temperatures, then the funds would just stay back in our reserves. So I just want to be clear that it wasn't a grant. It was, we have the dollars available to support an initiative, but it's not just a $20,000 grant, here you go. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because if we do it as a grant, that grant is going to be expected yearly, moving down. And I want to be very cautious about going down that road, so I just want to know your thoughts on that.
I think we understand that. Obviously, we hope to get it started. We actually in the proposal talked about a start date of December 16th, which we're a little late for already. But we'd love to get it started soon. And I think given that we know that the federal government's going to contribute some, we're hoping the county will also contribute some. We're hoping that the town, we're really thankful actually that you guys put this forward as recognizing the need, I guess. And so we're hoping that someone will actually take that step and say, okay, we're going to commit to giving this so we can actually get rolling. We'd like to think there's enough funding there. We have a number of volunteers actually lined up already, some staff potentially lined up to run with this really quickly if we actually get some commitments. So we recognize it's not just a grant, but even knowing that yes, if it's -20 or whatever it is it's set at, we will commit to this. Hopefully gives us a starting point that we can actually say, okay, we're going to go with this. Because none of us can afford to finance it on our own. We do have a bunch of volunteers that are very willing to help, but there are going to be costs, right?
That's another question. Sorry. Do you actually have anything in writing from the provincial government saying that they are going to step to the plate? I've not seen that.
So we have a series of text messages, which is not actually a formal written agreement, but there is text messages, which is legally still a form of written agreement. So we do have that. We do have a commitment around that. As I say, we just don't have the actual dollar amount. I think also as a working committee, what we talked about is that, yes, there's the extreme temperatures that would require life-saving measures, but then we also know that there's injuries that happen at some of those temperatures that are a wee bit warmer than -20 that still cost us all, right? And we also are just really hopeful to begin to reach out to people who are underhoused or living marginally or living rough, as we would call it, so that we might be able to affect some change, because overall, we know that they move from resource to resource to resource, and that still costs all of us. And so when we look at it like, what is the better measure for all of us, it's really to have a warming shelter that's open all the time. One of the difficulties is that if we only respond when it's extreme temperatures, we are not going to be able to mobilize staff necessarily or mobilize volunteers. Whereas the structure that we've put forward, we know that we would be able to have then something that would be available for everyone every day, that's consistent and that we can plan around. And as you say, we're aware that it's not necessarily a grant that would then be annualized within the town's budget, but it does buy us some time then to look at kind of proving the business case, if you say, and then our ability to apply for other funding further into the next year.
Okay, more questions from council? Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just want to say how impressed I am with the level of collaboration between all these organizations and how this has come about so quickly. I did not imagine that happening. Ms. Stradecki, you think keeping one open 7 days a week, every night, is a more efficient way of doing this than just triggered by a low temperature setting that has been suggested?
Yes.
How so?
Well, the first, sorry, David.
Can I speak to this one?
Yes.
So our organization has done both over the years. It's just become not possible for us, even just from a personal level, managing the extra staffing. I basically took on a second full-time job that involved night shifts as well, after already working my full 40 hours, and as a father of 5, and as the director of a food bank, which, as we all see in the news, are very busy this year. We just could not continue to justify that use of time and resources and money. But at the same time, it was very painful to not be able to continue with it. We did run both kinds of programs, and what I found was the problem with a temperature trigger is, do the people who need this center know what temperature it is? And so they're out in the cold and they're thinking, I got to get somewhere to warm up. And they show up and the door is locked and the lights are out. And they are not able to find shelter. Now they are doubly in trouble. And, you know, it's really about time and exposure and wind and all those other things. And we triggered ours when we ran the warming center at -15 with wind chill. Well, a full 10 degrees warmer than the proposed one here. I do recognize the distinction of this is an emergency life-saving measure. That makes a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, right, when, let's say it's -24, and someone comes braving the cold to make it to the center, and it's closed. It's not hard to imagine something catastrophic arising out of that. And something that costs all of us as taxpayers as well. Not to mention the personal cost of that individual, which of course outweighs everything else. And so I think we are quite happy to try and seek other forms of support for this program and say the town is sponsoring us when the temperature hits X. And I think if the town is willing to come into that kind of agreement with us, then we'll happily plug forward and, you know, probably our charities might dip into our already drained pocketbooks to try and get this thing off the ground. Churches will likely hold offerings. There's other ways of getting the generous support from the public, and the town's contribution will be, you know, generous, or will be gratefully received, whatever form that takes. But I do think there's an opportunity here for the town, especially when I think politically it's very tense out there. And it doesn't matter, you know, whose fault all this affordability crises are. If you're in any kind of position of leadership, you do take some of that blame, don't you? Whether that's justified or not. And so I think politically for the town council to step forward, even initially, and say we want to help out in some way, I think that was a very good move. And I think to move forward and to be the first party to the table to firmly commit with funding, even if it is just at that threshold, that allows us to, I think, to then, leverage that commitment in conversation with other funding partners and make some progress. And we'll see. I mean, this group has done a lot already. And I think that if we can carry some of that initiative forward, you might be amazed what we're able to do by the end of the season.
Can I just add one thing? Ken, you mentioned you're impressed with the number of different organizations that have come together. That would not have happened if town council hadn't have put this out. And so I just want to say thank you. Wherever we end up today, we're here because you guys put this as a need out and said, can someone help with this? And so I think just thank you. That was super helpful.
Okay. Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you again, Acting Mayor. I think it's obvious that your proposal is nowhere near what we asked for in the expression of interest. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But I guess there's a lot of numbers in the proposal. What exactly is the ask for this?
It's hard to answer that because we don't know what the federal government's going to contribute. Right?
Provincial.
We don't, or provincial, not federal. We don't know what the county is going to look at. That meeting doesn't happen until the new year because they've amalgamated. So it's hard for us to say exactly what the need's going to be because we don't know what the other resources are going to be. Like was said, I think if a commitment to even do what you initially had offered, right, the 25, we really hope you will revise that because we do feel like life-saving is way earlier than that. In other communities that are warmer, the cutoff is -5 or something like that, right? But even if there's a commitment of a certain amount, we can run, then we know what we need as churches per se. We then say, okay, there's going to be this much of a shortfall in this funding. We want to put an offering together. I can see that happening anyways, but it's hard to know what the need is until someone says, okay, this is what we're going to contribute.
And I think to answer your question, because this has come together fairly quickly, and for those of us who have been working in the field for some time and have connection with the population group, we really made a commitment to be malleable and to try to work with whatever came to the table. So the reason that there's a lot of numbers is because we do have, I would say, we would be flexible with what we receive. So, for example, if everyone came to the table, and let's just say for posterity's sake that the $20,000 was on the table this time, then whatever else we have from either the province or the county allows us to change maybe the staffing model, or allows us to change some of the hours, or allows us to do things like when we think about outlying areas, when those people are really cold and there's not space for them to get to Rocky. So for example, if they're near Caroline or they're near Leslieville or those sorts of things, that then we have the ability to provide hotel vouchers so that people can get into the community that is closest to them, right? So I think part of the reason that there's such different numbers is because we have possibilities based on what we receive for funding. I think as we talked about this morning, that part of what we hope for then is that the town can make a commitment to the -20 temperature, and then as David has suggested, that if those are the days that the town is willing to support, then really what we're looking at is sort of like a bill back based on those temperatures, right? That's very different than putting $20,000 on the table. But perhaps it meets everybody's needs, right? And then I think also just knowing what we have as commitment, as Ken has said, it allows us to go then to the rest of the community and say, this is where we're at. How can you support? Or in what ways can other people support? It allows us more information. I would say, just adding to what David has talked about, is that I'm aware, because of the other where I work, I'm aware that we had 2 very serious frostbite cases last year, and that resulted in limbs being amputated. It resulted in multiple months of hospitalization. And those individuals now are going to require care outside of it. And it was not minus 25 when those injuries happened. So I think, again, as David talked about, and when we talk about like being kind of the most effective, when we look at that, that costs all of us as a society. We're talking about changes in human potential. We're talking about changes in outcomes for people. We're talking about unnecessary hospitalizations, which affect all of us as a taxpayer. So again, just looking at how do we meet people where they're at, and how are we providing them the best service and hopefully the best outcomes for people, because it impacts our community overall.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Auld.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just have another question, comment, Candace. You're in that business, you know what's going on out there. Our homeless population decreased substantially in the last several months. I fear this, moving forward, as important as it is, if we become a 7-day-a-week program, I feel our homeless population is going to increase exponentially, because people that are communities that don't have this program, the homeless or marginalized groups are going to come to Rocky because we have the program. Do you feel that that is going to come true, or am I off base? Like, if we have a program that everybody knows that they can come to Rocky and have that service, they're going to come here and they're going to stay here during the summer months. We had numerous issues with encampments this summer, removing them off private property, public property. I fear that this is going to go the other way, and it's going to increase our homeless population in town.
So I would counter that a little bit, because being in that business, I know that we routinely send people to Red Deer. So what I would suggest is some of those folks might be returning then to their home community, because a good amount of the people that are currently experiencing homelessness in this community are from this community, and they have family connections here, and so I would see those people returning here. I think it's, I'm sure that you're all aware that Drayton Valley has a homeless shelter program, and I don't believe that their numbers indicate that it increased exponentially because they built that program. And I do think that one of the difficulties we have, I mean, our motto says where adventure begins. We know this is one of the corridors to the West Country. We know that part of our economic and tourism development plan is to draw more people here. And so it's a bit of a double-edged sword then, right? Because we have people who come here because they can, and it's sort of convenient, or they can still live out in the woods, truly. But then when the weather changes, that changes circumstances sometimes. I'm not certain that if we build this kind of program that we're going to see that kind of exponential increase. I think what we're going to do is serve the people that are from our community.
And if I can add, that is what we saw in previous years, because again, we were running it, during COVID, we actually ran it for, I think, 9 months in a row. And then the other times we were just running it seasonally for the winter only. And yeah, it was pretty much, we would have a few people that were passing through town, a few people from on reserve that would come into town and then need a place to stay. And that would be more of a short-term thing. But yeah, we didn't see a huge influx of people from the cities. I think we're already, though, seeing an influx of people from the cities because of the resources drying up and people maybe looking for greener pastures, which I think is just a bigger societal issue. Everything is grossly under capacity, you know. We're not really building affordable housing. There's just, I mean, I could get into a rant here, but it's getting harder for people with 2 jobs in a household to get by. My wife and I ran the numbers. Our groceries for a family of 7 are up $300 a month. How much extra gross income do you have to make in order to have $300 net income? And it's not even a simple equation, because you got to factor in clawbacks to benefits and all that sort of stuff. It's obscene. And we're doing okay because my wife works, I work, and we've been really, really wise and careful with our money. And we don't do anything fun besides hang out with our kids, right? But I'm joking. I enjoy my life. But I'm saying, like, the kid's 10 years younger and coming up. And all it takes is one bad thing to happen and they could be homeless too. And I've talked to many people that, are this close, and maybe they're from here, they left and they came back and they're looking for a place to live and then they give up because there's nothing. Or what is affordable is, just not adequate. And so, we could talk a lot about the fact of where all this demand is coming from, why are food banks busier than ever, right? It's not a problem that we're going to create by providing a service. It's a problem that's created from a lack of good, strong community building for probably the last 5 decades, culminating in this crisis we're seeing today.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. I had 2 questions. Candace, I thought I read somewhere that it must have been in the email, that you were getting the funds would be deposited from the minister's office the end of last week. And was there an actual dollar amount when that conversation happened?
So we were told that we would have it last week, and we're not certain what the delay is, so that didn't happen. Again, Janice, who is also part of our working committee, she has had regular communications with Minister Nixon's office. So we know that is coming. We've been told that we'll be quite pleased with what the outcome is, but we don't have that certain yet, right, in terms of the amount. So you're right, that was in the email. We know that they're coming to the table. We just don't have it yet.
Thanks. I appreciate what your group's done. And I think there was conversation had between the CAO and, that the mandate for this type of program is provincial. It's not municipal. And we've noticed that increase every time we turn around, that the province is downloading more and more. I think I could say for the entire group that we're fearful that once we commit to something that is mandated by the province, it becomes 100% ours over time. They'll give money for capital projects, but they won't give money for operation. I mean, you know
I know
those,
full well.
you know exactly where I'm going with that. So that is a concern for us as council. The other question I had was, you talked about insurance. Have you figured out a number, gotten a quote or anything yet on the insurance costs? I had heard $7,000 from somewhere.
So, pardon me. Through the municipality contact that Wes gave us, we have received insurance. I don't know what the cost is yet, so they issued us certificates of insurance, which is kind of interesting. But that was a very quick exchange, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have to see what that looks like, I guess.
Okay, Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it does say in your proposal that will be provided through a grant through the Town of Rocky Mountain House via Parks and Rec Division. The first time I'd seen this was on this proposal, so I just was wondering if there was any, I know that there was talk about reaching out to AB Munis to see if they could help, but again, we haven't approved any grant that I'm aware of. Maybe CAO?
Yeah, no, that was council's direction to administration when I met, is that it was the $250 a day plus we'd give a grant for the cost of insurance. Yeah.
And so what happened last week is David did reach out to Alberta Munis, as you're talking about, and they just issued a certificate effective December 13th until December 13th of next year. So we're not even certain of a cost. They just issued a certificate saying, yep, here, you have the insurance. So, sorry. Like, we were just trying to get things in place, so once we received monies, we would be able to start moving.
I was expecting an application form that we were gonna fill out and send back in sometime this week, but yeah, certificate of insurance, so.
We can follow, we can look into that when we, when we discuss
I like
further.
it. I like efficient processes like that. That's great.
That doesn't happen with government very often.
So I mean, obviously you can appreciate, municipalities are traditionally really good at rec centers, keeping the roads going, keeping the toilets flushing and the water going. When it comes to social issues like this, we're dipping our toes in the water. And it's traditionally been provincial, federal jurisdictions, which is now being looked at more for municipalities to try and solve some of the issues, which, elaborating to Councillor Hutchinson's, they're downloading it. So, when we looked at a service level of, minus 25 for however many days, 21 days out of the year, kind of on average, that's what we were looking at. And this is obviously a whole different program, which I appreciate, the time and the effort that was put together to come up with this. But now as a council, we have to discuss what we were looking at, what's being proposed, and how best to do it. And obviously with not knowing a dollar amount from the province and not even knowing if the county is willing or able to be part of this, that also throws some questions into the mix. So, Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a question about, initially our thought was $250 a day until we have $20,000 and the door would be open at minus 25. We based $250 a day on absolutely nothing as far as I was concerned. And so the question is $250 a number that would make sense for what we're looking for from a council perspective, or is it minimal, or where's that number at?
So I do have to say that when I take $250 a day, based on the conversations with CAO Kraus, that it works out to $190 for wages plus $60 a day for additional costs. I mean, if I were to do comparisons with other social care facilities, for example, that amount would probably be closer to $300 or $350 a day, because what you're looking at are costs for staffing, yes, but then overhead, really. And then also knowing that we would have to have a tiny bit of food offering, right? It's one thing to bring people in, but all of us as human beings, part of our contact with one another is that social basis or relationships. And so there's a small cost associated for that. And when we look at what other social care facilities operate on, that would be about the dollar amount. So it's on the low end, to answer your question.
Okay, Councillor Hutchinson will
Sorry,
probably get this wrapped up soon
Yeah,
here.
one more thing. So on this proposal, you're saying 91,485
Yep.
total program cost,
Yeah.
and you're open approximately, you're looking at 100 days, January, February, March.
Well, we were actually looking at December, January, February, March, when we did the proposal, when we did the numbers. And so, of course, that 91,000 includes all of the in-kind donations as well as the other things that we've allotted in terms of staffing and food and first aid.
So I was just doing a quick calculation. So that would have been, if we said 120 days, $762 a night is what you're looking at for numbers.
Yeah, when we were calculating that, Councillor Hutchinson, we were just looking at what we would need for staffing dollars per day, and then those other costs over and above that. And then when we look at what volunteer equivalencies are allowed, that $17 per hour is what's allowed under the federal government allowance. If we were to have to pay those volunteers, for example, based on what we're asking people to bring to the table, that would actually be a bit higher in terms of like just the qualifications, right? Like having the first aid, having CPR, naloxone training, all of those sorts of things. And ideally some sort of background, whether that's previous volunteer or work experience. So we didn't divide it down. We didn't take the 91,000, for example, and divide that down per day. We just looked at overall, this is what the cost would be in order to structure the program.
Yeah, and just a note there as well, that if you look, yeah, those bottom two line items are both in-kind numbers. So the in-kind donation and the donation of our facility, obviously, we're gonna be spending more on utilities, heating it and keeping the lights on during the night. Or we're gonna be supplying toilet paper, we're gonna be supplying coffee supplies, you know, little things here and there. And so it's gonna be a cost that our organization will carry. I'm not sure our budget is as big as the town, but I think we can probably handle a little bit of something like that. And then these volunteer hours as well,
Yeah.
right? So that's the value of time put in, and I think, again, that's laughably low when you're asking someone to work a night shift, you know, that's 17 an hour, right? And again, to come in and to give it their time and to be able to be, you know, there and present for people, to be able to respond to crisis situations and even just be prepared in the eventuality. I mean, and again, like one thing that I wanted to also put there forward was, it was fairly uneventful when we ran these programs because people were grateful. And so that's something else to throw in there.
Okay. Councillor Moosker will have one final question.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. I just want to get some clarity on the ask, just because we're going to be talking about this later, right? So what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is you view this, you view any municipal funding you get from the town as seed money? No, it's good. And we would still provide funding according to the request for expression of interest that would be triggered at a temperature and then on a per event basis. Is that correct?
So we could accept that. It wouldn't be our preference. Our preference would be that the 20,000 is on the table, but we could accept that. And as I said, there's a number of possibilities, and because this is seed money and this is the beginning, we'll work with what we receive. I
Thank
think
you.
I also need to just make note, in terms of the record, that we have other people here from the working committee as well. And so that would be John Optendries, Don Boschman, and then also Gary Naraki. So I think the fact that they're here supporting us also speaks to the importance that this is within our community and what our working committee is bringing forward in terms of how committed we are as a group.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in and presenting. Obviously, it's information we needed because we're talking about a decision, we're talking about dollar amounts that are different than what we had, kind of first discussed. So it's good to have this information, and of course, we will discuss this further down on our agenda. But thank you for coming in, and thank you for all that you do to the community. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on in our agenda, I'll move on to item 4.1, adoption of the operating and capital budget meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And is there any errors or omissions that anyone sees? If not, just looking for a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I also move those minutes as presented for the budget, for the operating and capital budget meeting from November 27th.
Okay, thank you for that. Any discussion? Call out to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. 4.2, the regular council meeting minutes for December 3rd. Has everyone had a chance to read those? And if there's no errors or omissions, just looking for a motion to accept. Councillor Auld.
I'll make the motion that we accept the regular council meeting minutes, December 3rd, 24.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to delegation business, 5.1, Debbie Morrison's delegation on parking. Discussion. What do we, Councillor Auld?
Just from the way our bylaws and everything is set right now, the only way that we could enforce what she's asking for is to have the bylaw rewritten. Like Mr. Kraus said, there's nothing stopping that person from parking there for 3 hours. Doesn't matter if they're an employee or a customer, moving one stall, and they're there for another 3 hours. It's their day. So unless we're prepared to redo that entire bylaw, there's really nothing we can do to prevent, other than asking people to be good humans and not do it.
More discussion? Yeah, this is one of those topics that they're going to be very polarized. There's going to be people on very much on each end of the spectrum. I mean, we have a pilot project in place now. I think it's good to see what that pilot project comes out with, and then we can make more decisions on that based in the future. Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a question about what we did. We had signs up for 3-hour parking. Did we do any enforcement on 3-hour parking, or was it on a complaint basis only?
So, I mean, we dealt with this complaint in the summer. So in the summer, and Mr. Schwader can correct me if I'm wrong, but we did go door to door to all the businesses, you know, asking that they keep the parking open for the public. We did send our bylaw officer out there for some enforcement, but people moved. And that kind of showed us, you know, was the effort worth the, you know, did it make sense? So, I mean, that was part of leading up to this decision, so let's just try it and see. And this button has given me the results of our survey. 4 respondents, 2 in favor of removing and 2 opposed to it. So, don't know if that helps council or not.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. And then there's been a lot on social media in regards to it, and, you know, I have to not, you know, you tend to think, somebody made the comment about you go to the grocery store and you've got to park on the other end of the parking lot and walk to get your groceries, but people aren't willing to park the top of Main Street and walk, you know, half a block down. So I myself don't find it an issue to park on Main Street.
Okay, more discussion? So we're just looking to accept this as information, Mr. Kraus, or? Okay. What's council's desire on this? Councillor Hutchinson.
I did like Debbie's comment about, you know, when it does come time for renewing business licenses, not to put a clause in there, but is there somewhere on there that can be added, of a reminder that if you have available parking in behind your business, park there? Or just maybe a little bit more education, but again, people only look at what they want to look at. But maybe there's an opportunity to add something in there, business license renewal.
Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. Here's a wild idea. What about reserved parking that businesses pay for in front of their stores?
I would look at Mr. Kraus to wonder how that would even.
Well, I mean, that'd be a bylaw rewrite. I would have to really look into it. I mean, so you're saying that business owners would pay a fee to have a stall in front of their business for their patrons only?
Yeah, it's just an idea, and I haven't thought much about the details, but hey, let's think outside the box a little bit.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I think if that's no different than the 3-hour parking limit, if we haven't got the means to enforce the bylaw, you know, how much time and effort is going to be put by our CPOs to be ensuring that license plate that's parked in front of the reserve sign is actually in the right spot. And what if they chose to just go up the street and get something quickly before they come back? I think it would be hard to monitor.
Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I definitely appreciate where they're at, and I know I find it disturbing when I go up Main Street and I recognize vehicles of businesses who park in front of their businesses, and they do it day after day. And it's unfortunate because there's sort of a respect for your fellow business person. But having said that, knowing that we'd have a policing issue, I think it's almost impossible to look after. I'd so make the motion, if you'd allow me, and that would be that we accept Debbie Morrison's delegation as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion on that motion? Call it to a vote. Oh, Councillor Auld?
I was just gonna say, we've done this as a pilot project. Let's run it and see how it shakes out, and if it works, it works. If not, then look at it again after our pilot project.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more discussion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Item 5.2, the warming shelter proposal. What is council's thoughts on this? Councillor Hutchinson.
You know, when we first received this, I felt very backed into a corner because it was so far out from our original expression of interest. I'm glad we did have the delegation to kind of explain, go over it with us, but you know, like we discussed, the 250 a day was just a number we just threw out there. We didn't do any research or anything. And if you take what they had said, the in-kind, the volunteer and the in-kind donations out of the equation, and that leaves 40,000 in funding, that's 333 nights a day, or pardon me, $333 a night. And I just don't see how something like that would be, like, it just seems really high to me for a shelter. But again, we shouldn't be calling it a shelter, should we? It's a warming center. And I guess maybe that's where I need to change my thought process as to what it is. But it does seem by their proposal that there's, you know, the training that the volunteers and the people want to have need. Is it taking it from a warming shelter to something more?
Councillor Auld.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. That's my concern. This is moving from a life-saving initiative, and it's going down the path of becoming a homeless shelter. I don't want to go down that road, not at this point, for funding that through the municipality. I would be willing to look at maybe dropping the days, or dropping the temperature down to that 20 below with wind chill, and still putting a dollar value on it. If they've indicated we're low at that 250, so maybe it's 275, and still have it based on our contribution tied to weather. And if the province is going to get on board and can cover any shortfall, I would suggest that's how they look at it. But our expression of interest was funding up to a certain amount based on weather, and that I still feel is where we should go.
So I look at this as there's some unknowns in here. First, there's very much unknown on county contribution because they really haven't had a chance to discuss it at all. We don't know how much the province is looking at adding. I mean, do we have an assurance? Probably, but do we know have an amount? No. So to me, I like what Councillor Auld is talking about, is going back to our original discussion and going with that for this year, seeing how this project plays out for the course of the year, and then we can have a more wholesome discussion for next year. Councillor Auld. Oh, Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Mayor. I guess where I'm at is, and I'd be prepared to make the motion as such, to stay within the parameters of our original discussions, and that would be to raise the amount to $300 a day, change the temperature to -20, to a maximum of 20,000 that we have in the budget.
Sorry, Councillor Auld.
That's a motion on the table.
I'd be prepared to make that as a motion, but I'm not sure if, I'd be prepared to make that as a motion. But I was going to listen to you first as to what you have to say before I make that motion, if I could.
My concern, I like your motion, I support it, but, so we have $20,000 in the budget for 25. So what happens in November of 25 and it's 30 below? They won't have any funds left over. Starts over again. How do we, now they're gonna be coming back to us to start the program in 25 in October, November, asking for more funds again. That's one of the reasons why I want to keep that dollar figure tied to the weather. Might leave some funds come.
And
So-
Deputy Mayor Shebolt.
Thank you. Councillor Alda, good point. What happens at the end of the year? I guess I'd go to Mr. Kraus and say, what does happen at the end of the year if we expend all the 20,000 in the spring of the year or this winter? What happens come fall? Do we say that it's only kicks in as of January 1st, or, you know, I don't know. I'm just looking for some direction. I don't know.
Sure. So this is kind of morphed, as council is aware. So council's really got just two options here. So originally, it's really a town program where we were looking for our contractor to implement, and we were willing to pay $250 a day and provide insurance. But that's really not what is occurring there. But council can keep that. I mean, that's their decision. But really what it's morphed into is basically a supplementary service under our policy. And so no different than the Mel Society, the Hospice Society, STARS, were council funds. So council can go down that path also and say, okay, so this is a health service or a social service. We're willing to put in, $5,000 for 2024 because council's already budgeted that. $5,000 for the beginning of 2025, and then you apply, like any other organization, through council's program for consideration going into 2026. So that's the option, another option for council. So even though council wanted it to start as a municipal program with criteria, it's morphing into something different. So maybe the council goes down the path where we're just providing a grant. They have a firm set amount, it'd be, $10,000 for this winter season, I guess it would be, for example, because really their request for funding is $40,000. And my understanding was the province was going to match whatever the town and county put in. So that's 10, 10, and 20. So I don't know if I've helped council here or not, because it's morphed so much, so.
Okay. So Councillor Hutchinson.
And that's where I was just doing that quick calculation based on $10,000 from us, 10 from the county, 20 from the province, assuming that, and that works out to $83.33 a night is our contribution, and that's for the 120 days, which that's already been shortened. But I would be more in favor of where Mr. Kraus was going with the 10,000 would be the max, but that includes, does that include the insurance, or would that be on top of the insurance, and then have it revisited and looked at in the fall and have them put an application in if it, I mean, we have no idea what it's gonna, where it's gonna go to and how it's gonna pan out.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would agree with Councillor Hutchinson. The $10,000, especially I asked the question, do they consider this seed money? And by the sounds of the delegation's responses, yes. And they have every intention of finding alternate funding to continue the support of this, but they need help getting it rolling. When we have a ceiling, and I'm in favor if we go that route of $20,000, I think if we just commit 10, it'll end up being less than it would be if we say -20. And also, we talked about other levels of government getting involved. I would like to see this council take the lead on this and not wait for another level of government to commit so that we do. I mean, let's show some support here and just jump in with both feet if we're gonna do it.
Councillor Ald.
I agree with Councilor Musker. We've committed for $20,000. If we set that temperature and set the dollar, that should cover them for all of 25. November, December of next year, January, February, March of this year, that should cover them for the 25. If they can use that 20 and get the county to come on board, get the province to come on board, that establishes what they're looking for. And I do think it's important that this was our initiative, and I think we need to roll it down the hill.
Councillor Capraro.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I agree fully with Councillors Musker and Ald with this. I think we should still tie it to funds being with weather. I'm totally in favor of lowering that to the -20. But yeah, with a $20,000 budget, that really should take them, I think, for all of 2025. So I would be in favor of that.
Councillor Hutchinson.
So just some clarity, would that be back to where we were originally talking, where basically they would invoice us for 6 nights in December, 8 here? Is that kind of the thought process? Yeah.
I just have one question. So we're saying -20 with a set dollar amount. Does that include insurance, or is insurance over and above that?
We have no idea what the insurance bill is.
And that's the problem, we don't know it, yeah.
But we do have the 5,000 in 24's budget to go towards insurance. That's, we've already given them that. If it's more than that, then they're gonna have to dip into some other funding.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. So I'm going to throw my motion forward that I originally had said, and is that we resolve the council raise the daily amount from 250 to 300 per day, and the temperature from -25 to -20, up to a maximum of 20,000 per year.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Councillor Musker.
I just want to say thank you, Acting Mayor, that I would prefer the $10,000 grant. It gets them started and not waiting for the temperature to drop. That's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you. I do have the question still on the insurance. How, that doesn't address the insurance portion of this. Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think according to, I agree with what Councillor All said, that we have 5,000 in the budget this year, which there's a possibility being this late in the year it won't get accessed, and we have the 20,000 in the budget for next year already for this process. I think this is critical for our community. I think it's something we need to take a lead role in. They voiced their concerns or their pleasures with us taking that role. I think we continue down that road. I don't think we change the numbers. I think we need to say thank you to them for doing what they're doing. So, and we can hope for a warm winter and that we don't access the funds. So at the end of the day, it may not be that kind of money.
Mr. Crouse.
Just comments, Acting Mayor, on the proposed motion. I think it would read better for 2025 versus per year, because per year is actually kind of binding future councils.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then the insurance, that could be a separate motion that council either wants to know the dollar figure before it's approved, and we would bring it back when we know, or just authorize administration to approve the insurance up to a certain amount, because we still need funds in 2024 for when it goes below -20.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would be happy to make that change to my motion.
So your change is from per year to 2025?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any more discussion on that particular motion? Not, I'll call it to a vote. Oh,
I'll just say maybe reread it for the listeners.
okay. Would you like to reread your motion?
Do you want the whole motion? Let it be resolved, the council raise the daily amount from $250 per day to $300 per day, and the temperature from -25 to -20, up to a maximum 20,000 for 2025.
Okay, thank you for that. Everyone's clear on that? And I will call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. So now the insurance, we need to, Councillor Ald.
I was just gonna clarify that. So do we need to make the motion for the $5,000 in the budget for 2024 to strictly go to the insurance?
And I guess this is where it's kind of a little awkward, acting Mayor, because we don't know when they're up and running and what the temperature is going to be for the next 2 weeks. So we might have to take some money out of the 5,000 that council's allocated to the actual shelter. So I can't see the insurance.
I'd be really surprised if it's as high as he indicated, like $5,000.
So maybe just a motion up to authorize administration to provide a grant up to $3,000 for insurance. And that, and then if it's more, then we can bring it back to council for authorization. If that works for council.
I'd make that motion then that we instruct administration to provide a grant up to $3,000 for insurance for 2024, 2025 for the warming shelter.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Is everyone clear on that? Discussion? I will call that to a vote then. All those in favor?
Bless you.
And that is carried unanimous. Okay. Good discussion, everyone. So moving on to item 6.1, the election bylaw. And is Ms. Breeze taking that, or Mr. Kraus?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So council gave first reading to the election bylaw with amendment. The only amendment was the removal of the $100 fee required. So we are just, that amendment has been made, and we are looking to council for consideration to second and third reading.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Councillor Capraro.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
Be it resolved that council gives second reading to election bylaw 2024/17 with the removal of section 10 nomination deposits.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Do we have another motion? Councillor Ald.
I'll make the motion, be it resolved the council give third reading to election bylaw 2024/17 as amended.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. So we'll have one more. We'll do the football, 7.1, the football loan bylaw. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So council has instructed administration to prepare a bylaw to loan $23,750 to the Football Association for the purpose of completing the payments on the football field lighting. Administration has done that and is presenting it to council. We have gone through the terms and condition of the proposed bylaw in agreement with the Football Association, and they are in agreement with the terms and conditions. It is basically laid out for 5 years with 5% interest. If we do get lumps payments from the football, then all those calculations are redone again. So it's an incentive, I guess, with the insurance to pay it off sooner than later. So just for council's consideration.
Okay. Do we have discussion? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I'm still a little on the fence with this one. I had some questions regarding with their loan agreement. What happens if the football club dissolves? Then we're on the hook. But also, do they have director insurance as a nonprofit that a lot of time, if they don't have that, then directors can become liable for debts incurred by those nonprofits.
Yeah, Mayor, I can't answer what insurance the Football Association has. So, I mean, we've never inquired with them for that. If they dissolve, we'd have limited recourse action, that's for sure.
Councillor Cabrero.
The way that I look at that, though, if they did dissolve, and unfortunately the town would be out the money, having those lights there, it still offers things to the members of the community when it comes to the oval at night in the wintertime, people skating. There's still benefits to the community in having it. It would be unfortunate if they dissolved, but I think at the end of the day, those lights there, it does serve a lot of people in our community.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. We went to the dance with these people for this, for getting the lights put in. I'm still in disagreement with doing a loan. I think we should pay this outright and eliminate all the headaches that it could cause down the road and the negativity it could cause. This is these lights are something the community will use. They're beneficial to our community long term. I think that we just bite the bullet on this for the amount that's outstanding. And if the county is on the hook for half of this amount of money, if we could talk them into it possibly, the number, I'm not sure where that's all at, but I disagree with doing loans and tying up volunteers on committees and holding their feet to the fire. It just doesn't feel right.
Councillor Auld.
I just say, I disagree with not putting this back in their court. As you said, we've bit the bullet numerous times now, coming back to the table because this wasn't done properly. We need to have some skin in the game from the football club to make this happen. We've thousands and thousands of dollars that we've spent on this already. They need to be responsible for some of it.
Okay, more discussion? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. Just a question, Mr. Crowe. So this amount of money, could it be split with the county? Is the county supposedly having to pay half it or not, or where's that at?
So Acting Mayor to Deputy Mayor, so there's no obligation right now from the county to pay 50%. I know they've made a presentation to the county, but they didn't do a funding request because they were looking at the GST rebate at the time. I mean, that'd be up to council if they want to pay 50% of this out and then let the football club work with the county. But right now, there's no decision from the county, or no ask has actually been made to the county on this funds.
So just on that, if we sign the agreement, and the football club could still go to the county and request half, and then just pay the loan out for half, and then just continue to whatever would be left 2.5 years of payments. That's possible?
So the agreement's drafted, they can do lump payments at any time, and then it just gets recalculated for the yearly payment and the interest. So where that funding comes from would be up to the football club.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. So the number we're looking at is $23,750 to do a mortgage in. That doesn't include monies that could be coming back from GST, which is anticipated. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It does not include that. So if they get their GST rebate, they could apply all of that to this $23,000.
I'm still of the belief if they get GST back, and if they go to the county and they go to us, we're maybe talking $8,000. Seems like a lot of paperwork for not a whole bunch of money, and I just see the negativity in it. I just think we just go ahead and and ask them to, if they should get GST back, that we would get a proportionate amount of that back. And the county, if they talk them into going halfway, they got it covered and it's looked after. It's a community venture. I'm not in favor of a mortgage.
Do we have do we even have an estimated amount of what that GST could be? Do we even know that?
No.
Okay,
I think
okay.
the number $10,000 comes to mind, no confirmation.
Okay, so we've got differing opinions here, so what does council want to do with this? Councillor Ald.
This is my idea, so I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that council give first reading to the loan bylaw 2024/19 and instruct administration to advertise a bylaw in accordance with the Municipal Government Act.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Councillor Schipholt has discussion.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I want to speak against the motion. Knowing that it could be $10,000, so we're down to $6,000, that could be our proportionate amount, and we don't know what that number is. I still think that it's not worth the mortgage for, if it was $6,000. And yeah, I know we went to the dance with these people all through this whole thing, and it's cost us a lot of money. But typically when you do projects, overruns happen. And so I think in this case, we look at an alternate funding source, or alternate funding, and that's by, if we have to pay the full amount to begin with, and then getting them to go to the county, or paying half and telling them to go to the county to get the other half. I don't know. I just think that it doesn't make sense to have a mortgage for that minimal amount of money.
More discussion. No further discussion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Ald.
Thank you.
Councillor
I think they've got avenues to go down that this doesn't have to turn into a 5-year program. They have the GST, or hopefully they have the GST. They have equipment they could sell. If they wanted to speed it up, they could have it paid for sooner than later. By just paying it and hoping that the county comes back and provides some funds, or hoping that they give us the GST, it's going to be another 2 months before we get that paperwork drawn up. This gets it going, and they can have it resolved as quick as they want it to. If they don't want to have a mortgage, then they have ways around it. But this still keeps the onus on them to get it done.
Okay, more discussion? If not, I will call the motion to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, I think it's a good time to take a break. So we will take a 10-minute break and resume after that. Okay, thank you. We're resuming our regular council meeting, and we're going to move on to item 7.2, the Affordable Housing Bylaw. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So just a little background. So the province changed the Municipal Government Act. The change actually comes in effect January 1st, 2025. But under the change to the MGA is that affordable housing that meets certain criteria is now property tax exempt. And one of the main criteria in that is these organizations or who have the affordable housing is in an agreement with the federal or provincial government for affordable housing. So, so it only apply to those organizations while they're under an agreement. So the town has three organizations, the town being one, that offers affordable housing that meets the criteria under the new provincial legislation. Like for us, it's the Post House. And for two organizations, us and another one, their agreements with the province expires in 2026. So in 2026, they would no longer be property tax exempt, and the other one is 2027. So I'm not quite understanding what the province is trying to achieve here if it's not continuous. But regardless, it is a provincial legislation. Under the MGA, council does have the option to make these or affordable housing projects that are taxable, and council can do it up to full amount or anywhere in between. So historically, so the town with our Post House, we have never included income or property tax within our rent. The other organization has been tax exempt through the community organization property tax exemption regulation, basically because it's a benevolent type of organization. And the third one has always paid 100% of the property tax. So I know administratively we've brought forward a bylaw that's saying 50%, but I mean, I think that's more for council's discussion, because that would cover all three organizations the way it's drafted. But council can explore different options also. Maybe it's for under the premise if they've been exempt before, they will keep them exempt. If they've been paying before, council will continue with the property tax. I mean, so council has different options. So it's really being brought forward to council today for more discussion than a bylaw reading, because there is no rush on this. It would just have to be passed early in the new year before the tax notices went out.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Kraus. Council discussion. Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I brought this forward or suggested the 50% reduction, and I still think that that's something for those who are, the government is so kindly saying to us, could be totally exempt. So I think we go ahead with the 50%, although I do like your idea of sort of staying status quo. But they've indicated that, the government has indicated preferably not to have any taxes on those properties that they've identified. So I'm prepared to move forward with the 50% reduction in tax for those.
Thank you. Councillor Musker.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a question. If we go with the 50%, does it apply to all three?
The way the bylaw is drafted is yes. So
Okay, Councillor Hall. I'll go back.
It's another example of the government trying to implement programs on the back of municipalities. They want to look good saying that to keep the rents down, but it's on the back of the rest of the municipality instead of something that they can provide to our low-income families. I I agree with Councillor Shipple, the 50%, but I'm on the fence as far as adding tax to the previous tax exempt businesses. Or housing, sorry.
Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you. I'm support that. Status quo for the ones that haven't had property tax, but the one that has dropped to 50%.
More discussion? Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Thank you. I'd be in favor of Councillor Musker's suggestion. Councillor Auld.
Okay. No, any more discussion? If not, we are looking for Mr. Kraus, do you have something to say? Oh.
You're going to answer my question.
Yeah, so the bylaw would need an amendment to reflect, it would
Those
only
changes.
apply to properties that currently paid or paid property taxes in 2024. So we'd come back with an amendment for second reading.
Okay, is someone prepared to make a motion to that effect? Councillor Musker.
Can I just make a motion to send it back to administration to be amended? Is that what you've got?
No, there was no motion on the table. So we have two options, I guess. One would be to do the first reading with amendments, or to bring it back. Would be our two options at this point. Your light's not on, Councillor Musker.
Thank you. I would like to see it amended before it comes back
Okay.
for any reading. So can I make that motion? I'll make the motion that we send this, where is it? That council refer bylaw 2024/18 taxation exempt property back to administration for further amendments. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that? I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, were you in favor, or? I was in favor. Okay, so that's unanimous. That's unanimous then. Moving on to item 7.3, the community grant policy. Mr. Kraus, did you want to speak to
Yes,
this?
thank you, Acting Mayor. So as per the service level discussions and council just realigning the supplementary service grants, the community events, part of council's direction was to discontinue the small community grants. So for council to do that would be just rescinding the current policy.
Okay, I know we obviously discussed this at service level, and any more questions or concerns or comments on this? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. I will so move that it be resolved that council rescind community grant policy 002/2024.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion on that motion. Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 7.4, the rates, fees, and charges bylaw. Will that be Mr. Kraus or Ms. Quinlan?
Okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor. So, unless Ms. Quinlan really wants to go through it. Working with council, we in service level is all reviewed for different changes in fees. Does council want to go through each individual department for fees, or does council just want to ask questions? It reflects, primarily the changes discussed, at service level. I mean, the big impact is the utility rates, which would be effective come April 1st once EPR is in place, which buffers that a bit. Administration, we did put one recommendation in here that wasn't discussed amongst council, because with the community grant policy being rescinded, an annual request is the loose oppet for Remembrance Day. So we did put that into the fees and rates bylaw for council's consideration, that it's just an automatic type of event. But I will take questions from council, or we could go through each department if council so desires.
I know we went through, Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to go through them all, but I do have a question under Planning and Community Development, Schedule C, on page C5 of that. And that's, I don't understand the electrical fees that are charged. When I read through that, I got lost in it. So, so if you go to C5, page C5 on that.
Yeah,
So
so,
I just don't understand it.
yeah, so those are safety codes permits, and it's basically outlined throughout the province of how those fees are done for electrical, plumbing, gas, building permits. So for electrical, it's based on the value of the electrical installation, and then it relates to the permit fee.
So when it starts out, it says 10% of the permit fee
Oh, I see.
to a maximum of $250. And then for additional inspections, and then it's got the chart beneath it, which breaks out on a per cost as to what the electrical installation's worth and how much it costs for the permit. So when I read the first, it said 10% of the permit fee, because we're talking about electrical systems. And then it further goes on to say so much per dollar value of the electrical installation. So I'm not, I don't know. I'm not sure what I did not, it didn't make sense to me.
So I think it's reading, so with the dollar figure and the permit fee, that's the permit fee. If you require additional inspections, then they would add 10% to that fee. And I'll look to Mr. Schwader, if that's correct, so it's his department.
Okay. So then the chart beneath that, the one with the values and dollar amounts.
Yeah, so
What's that part of a building?
presently, we deal with IJD, who, and I double-checked with them for the rates and fees for moving forward, and none of the rates have changed. But as far as Mr. Kraus, the way he explained it, it's, you're only allowed, but say, for an electrical job, you get 4 inspections. If you need more than four inspections for that particular job, they will add a 10% additional fee up to a maximum of $250 as far as the 10%. So like most, even when you build a home, you get 5 inspections. Say, you need more than 5 inspections, there is a cost for them to come out and do that 6th or 7th inspection.
Okay, so that part, then what's the chart beneath that for?
All these charts, the numbers here?
Yes.
That just breaks it down as far as the value of the job. So if the electrical job was $10,000, you look at the 10,000, it would be worth $295 for the fee.
I see, and then the 10% is applied on top of that.
If you need
Okay.
more than 4 inspections for that job.
Okay. I was
I
thinking
haven't
of the
seen
building
that-
permit costs, not the electrical costs, so I see where you're at, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and over the years with IJD, I haven't seen any real additional costs. They are quite user-friendly as far as inspection service. So, I think they put that there just in case that, say, a restaurant needs 6 or 7 inspections because they haven't done their job properly, I guess, and they need them to come back. There's a fee for every time they do an inspection.
Are there any more questions on any of the changes to the rates and fees? I do like that we have the Remembrance Day one added in there. It will save time in the fall for that. Deputy Mayor Shipple, do you have another question?
Thank you. I was looking at how much it costs to put a body in a columbarium. Columbarium, is that what it's called?
I think so.
Okay. We last week, Councillor Musker and myself had listened to somebody from the county speaking of people getting buried in cemeteries without proper permitting because of costs involved, and especially in old cemeteries and how that's going up throughout the province. And when I was looking at how much it costs to die in Rocky Mountain House and get buried at the cemetery, I thought, no wonder people are going to these private old cemeteries and burying loved ones and no markers, no nothing, and all of a sudden a grave appears. So I guess if the costs there, how do we determine those costs? Like, they seem high. It seems like a lot of money to die.
Mr. Kraus.
I'm trying to find, oh, there it is. Those are historic costs. I mean, to be honest with you, the town subsidizes the cemetery already, which is ongoing maintenance costs, and so I don't think we could say it's based on the amount of time our crews out there to prepare for the burial or anything like that. It's kind of more based on a provincial review of different cemeteries similar to ours.
I thought was up there. I can't. Like 1,200 net.
Yeah.
So for people who can't afford a funeral, then the alternative is now they're going and visiting their deceased loved ones. And I can't remember the wording on that. Do you recall something?
Yes, I do. It was called Wildcat Burials, or Wildcat Internments.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it was cremated remains that were being interred.
Yeah. Councillor Auld.
So sorry, just a question. So people are going to cemeteries in the county and just digging a hole and putting their loved one in the hole in the cemetery. I've never heard of that being an issue.
I haven't heard of it either.
And I think Ms. Quinlan has some information to add.
Maybe I can just add a little bit to it. The cost of a columbarium, we did just purchase 3 new columbariums. The cost of buying and installing those was like over $90,000, so it was about $95,000. So the cost of a niche, I mean, it is expensive. When you look at what we're charging, and I haven't done a cost break-even analysis, but the cost of a niche is actually, I would say, probably cheaper than the cost of a burial, because if you're having a full burial, you've got the cost of the plot, you've got the cost of a coffin, then they have to be buried in a liner, and then there's also the headstone. So yes, burials are expensive. I think probably in all of Canada, I wouldn't say just here. I think our costs are in line with other municipalities. I have been doing a lot of work this last year on the cemetery and want to look at redoing the whole cemetery bylaw. But really, your costs or what you're charging, you want to try to recover at least some of the costs of maintaining the cemetery, the costs of the labor involved in a burial, as well as, purchasing these columbariums. So the costs, while we haven't done a detailed analysis, they are in line with other communities. Does that help?
It does, but I'd be very interested to see what we do for the columbarium in terms of what we charge and what it costs for the placement, because I would think they're fairly maintenance-free and easy to maintain. And I don't know, for the ones we bought for $90,000, how many niches that give us and how that breaks out. Just not that we can I'm okay with the bylaw, but just from a inquisitive aspect, I wouldn't mind seeing what that costs us and what the breakdown is if we could.
That's something that could probably be provided after Mr. Gross. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So back to the rates and fees. Any other questions, concerns, comments on the changes to the rates and fees bylaw? If not, then we have a Councillor Capero.
Thank you. Just because it looks like there's no discussion, I will go ahead and make a motion. Be it resolved that council give first reading to fees, rates, and charges bylaw 2024/16 as presented.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion on that motion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And Councillor Auld.
I would make the second motion, be it resolved that council gives second reading to fees, rates, and charges by law 2024/16.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion on that? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. And Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Be it resolved that council give unanimous consent to proceed to the third reading of fees, rates, and charges bylaw 2024/16.
Thank you for that. Discussion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And we have one more. Councillor Musker.
Thank you. My motion is be it resolved that council give third and final reading to fees, rates, and charges bylaw 2024/16.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion? Call out to a vote. All those in favor? And that is also carried. So we're moving on to item 7.5, the operating capital budget. Ms. Quinlan.
Thank you. So on November 27th, we did have budget discussions, and as a result of the discussions, we've brought forward the 2025 operating and capital budget for your, I guess, final review and approval. The total operating budget is $28,042,892, and the capital is $5,827,100, and there is amortization included, which is a non-cash item of $3,474,250. I have provided highlights in the briefing note about sort of what the major components are of the budget. This budget will include a 2% overall tax increase. Right now, the way it's standing, it's looking at 1.9 for residential and between 2.1 and 2.16 for non-residential. So that will increase property taxes, but they're looking at, it'll be for a residential property, it'll be about $69 a year, just under $6 a month. And the non-residentials, there's a wider range in terms of what their assessments are, but they will range anywhere from $153 to $421. I have included the table just for reference that shows sort of the breakdown of tax allocation dollars per property in terms of what type of services people are getting in town, with a daily cost of $6.41, ranging from, actually social services is negative because they're not paying taxes, up to, you know, the high is for protective services of $1.92 a day. I've talked about the total budget. I have highlighted some of the major changes here. I'm not going to go through them because I think we already had discussion. There are, I think, two major changes in the budget this year. One is, and they're all in the utilities area, one is the move to EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibilities. We will be receiving grant funding, which is just in the process of being finalized. And then the other is that hopefully by mid-year we will be starting the commissioning for the solid waste treatment plant. There are 2.5 new positions in the budget. One is a maintenance worker, one is through FCSS, and the other is the .5 position for the Rural Renewal Stream Coordinator that Council approved, I think, midway through 2024. The total capital projects are $5.8 million. I've included a table just showing sort of the major classifications. There's a broad range of projects, ranging anywhere from just sort of routine maintenance, vehicle equipment replacement, all the way up to the I mean, probably one of the biggest ones is replacing the water line under the highway that we've had numerous breaks on in the last couple of years. So with that, I mean, I guess unless there's, if there's specific questions on the budget, I will just leave it at that.
Thank you for that presentation. Deputy Mayor Scheffel, I see your finger going.
Yes, my finger was crawling. Anyhow, thank you, Acting Mayor. So the feedback I've got after people have listened to our budget meetings is relative to the wayfinding signage and that program. So we've got $200,000 budgeted in there. Not really knowing what we're going to get for $200,000 or what it's going to look like, and it's a 3-year plan. A couple of concerns. Once we approve the budget, then we've really green-lighted administration to go forward with everything we've approved. The budget is a blanket document allowing that to happen. I'd like to talk about the wayfinding signs. I think there's 2 alternatives. Number one is that we either decrease the amount to 100,000 and have a look and see what they look like, and if we're happy with them, and if that program makes sense going forward, or secondly, if we tell or ask administration to bring it forward before they actually spend the money, once they get costing and what the program's going to look like and what we're going to get for the 200,000 in the budget. So either way, then it gives us a bit of control. So I asked administration if either of those 2 are preferable, or if we can do that, because once we agree with the budget is a go. Everything falls into place and the wheel starts turning. So this wayfinding signage thing seems to be a bit of a concern about the price tag and what the discussion was in the budget meeting. So
I'll probably defer to Mr. Kraus how we can, how would that look, or how could that?
No, I mean, the wayfinding project is council's initiative, so it's, I mean, it's how council wants us to proceed. So either way, I mean, council could keep 200,000 and just do a motion with the caveat that it comes back for council review for phase 1 prior to awarding the tender. 2, you could reduce the amount in the budget and to 100,000, and administration would probably just select some of the key locations of those signs and go out to tender for that and have them constructed and see what the feedback is. It's entirely up to council. I mean, council can keep 200,000 in the budget and just say we want to only do, well, that wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't need 200,000, sorry. So, but it's however council wants to proceed with this initiative. I mean, administration's fine either way.
So if that was a choice that we made, would we approve the budget as is and then have a second motion on after the budget is approved to say the wayfinding sign program would be with whichever option we so choose? If the motion was defeated, then it goes, and if the motion was approved, then...
Yeah, so if council wants to keep the 200,000 in the budget, you would just pass the budget as presented, and then make the second motion that administration bring back the wayfinding project for council's review before initiating it. Or if council wanted to reduce it, you would pass the 2025 capital budget with the amendment of reducing the wayfinding project to 100,000.
So what are council's thoughts? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I mean, we discussed this at length at service level review. You know, I think that we've got a balanced budget right now. We keep it in there. And, you know, again, these are numbers typical that when you get conceptual drawings and things like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the amount that's going to be in there. But if it's not in the budget, then we're kind of backtracking on how do we fund and where do we fund. So I would like to just accept the budget as we have in front of us.
Go ahead, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Schiffold.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess to Councillor Hutchinson, you know what we're getting for 200,000, because even reading the report, it's not definitive of what we're going to see or what we're going to do or what they're going to look like. Yes, there's renderings of possible signs, and there's a whole gamut of renderings in there. And I think the part that bothers me is that that's where I've received feedback from the public saying this is a lot of money and it's over a period of time, and it is a lot of money. But once we get costing and know where the signs are going, I think we need to have some control on this one issue. I don't think we should just green light the whole program and say go for it, because we as council, at least I as a councillor, have no idea what to expect, what to anticipate, where the signs are going, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to have a bit of knowledge about what's going on with this one item. I would recommend that if we're going to leave it in the budget, that it comes back to council for final approval once it goes out for pricing, and so we know what's going on and what they look like.
Councillor Hutchinson.
And absolutely, and I think that has always been the intention. It was us who brought the project forward. We were the ones who decided that we wanted it. There hasn't been final approval on which design style or anything like that, and from my understanding, that is going to be brought before council. So 200,000 is a high estimate based on what's in there, but if we don't keep it in the budget, and it's always good if we come under budget. But from what I understand, those decisions will be coming back to council. Am I correct with that, Mr. Kraus?
Okay, go Mr. Kraus, and then we'll go to Deputy Mayor Schiff after.
No, it was, if council passes the budget, we would just go with what's presented in that presentation. That's what council's kind of accepted. But, I mean, just looking at the project, just for council aware, like when I review it, I go, it's very high-end engineered. I mean, like every sign has a screw pile, they're all aluminum, so I don't know if it's over-engineered. I'm assuming it is, because engineers get their fee off what the cost of the project is. And if we went out to when we go to RFP, I mean, we will use the consultant's design, but we'll also put a caveat in there that the proponents can propose different construction designs and methods, so make sure we get the best pricing for it. The budget number, the 20,000, which was provided by the consultant, that also considers inflationary and a contingency and so forth. So, when you break it down per sign, I'm truly hoping it's not that amount, because there is built-in contingency and interest in there. And, these costings are with an expectation that it's a out-of-town firm that would be doing it, installing it, so there's travel and there's accommodations built into that budget number also. I mean, we always hope there's local businesses that would bid on something like this and reduce those costs. So it is very much a budget number. But this is council's initiative. And if council wants the design to come back and the tenders to come back, that is totally into council's preview. So we would just need a motion from council that design and costing comes back to council prior to proceeding with the project. Because like Deputy Mayor said, once council passes the budget, you're basically saying, okay, we reviewed everything, now you guys are good to go. But if there's something that council needs more review on, then we just need that resolution to instruct us to come bring it back to you.
Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you. I'd be very comfortable with that, leaving the numbers in the budget the way they are, but having that safety check that it comes back before council for final approval or for adjustments or amendments or anything like that. I'm seeing a lot of nods. If that's the case, can I start to make motions on the budget?
Yes.
Okay, let me find it here. I'll make the motion, be it resolved that council adopt the 2025 operating capital budget with total operating revenues and expenditures of $28,042,892, as well as non-cash amortization of $3,474,250, and a capital budget in the amount of $5,827,100, with the wayfinding project costing and design to come back to council for final approval.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any discussion. I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So moving on to item 7.6, Councilor or Deputy Mayor Schipholt's notice of motion for Highway 11 lights. I will pass that over to Deputy Mayor Schipholt.
Thank you. So my motion here is, so we instruct council to bring forward a recommendation for installing lights on Highway 11 through Rocky Mountain House, and I'm hoping that recommendation is to go to Alberta Highways or Alberta Transportation and say, here's what we want. My hope would be to get lights from one end of the town through to the other without light and dark spots in town. So I guess I'm just looking for administration to maybe to comment on.
Yeah, so acting mayor to deputy mayor, our first step would be drafting a letter to the Minister of Transportation with the request signed by the acting mayor to get a response. And from that response, then we can figure out the best tactics. It'd be nice if they just said yes, sure, but I think it'll take more work. I'm sure they'll probably ask for safety concerns and stuff like that, so.
Okay. So what is council's thoughts on that? I mean, I actually paid attention the last time I was driving through town when it was night to see what it looked like, and it is kind of odd that, you know, we have lights and no lights and parts. Yeah, it doesn't, it would make more sense to have lights all the way through town for sure. So then would we need to make a motion, or this is the motion, Mr. Kraus?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, my motion is my motion, and so we'll just leave it with administration to see what comes. And the other part of that is if they're doing a highway upgrade through Rocky Mountain, so they may say, hey, until we do the highway upgrade, which is 20 years down the road. So the response will be interesting. Let's see what they tell us.
Okay, so we have Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Schipholt's notice, or motion. Now we need to vote on that, correct? Okay, so any more discussion? Okay, I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. I'll move on to item 8.1, the letter from the Rocky Taxpayers Association regarding the wayfinding project, which we had a good discussion on that already. Is there any more discussion that council wants to have on this matter? Councillor Auld.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would just like to say that I disagree with portions of what the RTA has said in their letter. It's a difference in what we're looking at doing. We're trying to make Rocky a destination, a tourist destination. The signs aren't for necessarily trying to find one exact business or store, or if you're looking for a pair of shoes and you Google it, sure, it's going to take you to the 3 different stores. This is for tourists that come to town that see the signs, can navigate the town. All of a sudden they walk by, they see a sign that points them to another direction to XYZ. It's not meant as a map that you're going to get on Google. It's meant to help tourists, help people that are visiting our town see what we have to offer without having a specific item in mind. So when they're saying it's just a map and they can do it on Google, sure. But that's not the intent of the wayfinding signage.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Auld. Deputy Mayor Schipholt.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would suggest that we put Councillor All's comments into a letter and advise them as per those comments.
Okay, and should that letter also include what we've added in as a motion?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want that as a motion?
Just that, council
Respond.
thanked the RTA for the letter and instructed administration to respond with the letter. It's fine, and we can draft it accordingly. so.
Okay, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you for that. Discussion on that letter to the RTA? I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to item 8.2, the Brownlee invitation. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yes, I think most of us had gotten the email in regards to the early bird deadlines for the, what is it called? 2025 Emerging Trends in Municipal Law. They're the two dates, Thursday, February 6th, in person only, and Thursday, February 13th is in person and virtual. I know a lot of us have attended this in the past. I think last year most of us did it virtually in council chambers here. And it was great because we had really good conversation amongst us. So I would just be looking at putting a motion forward that anybody who chooses, or do you want specifics? That any council member wishes to attend to register with legislation.
Okay, so you're making that motion?
I am.
Thank you. Councillor Auld.
Just a question on the motion. Is that to attend in person or virtually?
I know that it's gone both ways. I know there's advantages to being in person, and there is the networking and the opportunities there, but I'm not going to say one or the other, but I think I would stress that as a council, it was very, very good being in the same room together and having the conversations.
Deputy Mayor Shipple, and then I'll go to Councillor Auld.
I only have, so one of the things that we're trying to do is talk to different land developers for our community. And one of those land developers is in Edmonton. And I'm just wondering if the Edmonton one shouldn't be tied into a meeting of, we put a group together to talk to people who got land in the area, if we shouldn't try to tag team that just for cost savings. And one day go and visit those people. And then the following day, or vice versa, go to this event. So I just toss that out there of, rather than being here, that we go and talk to the people who own land in the city that we want to get developed. I just toss it out there. I mean, we can make a separate trip up as well, but I thought if we're going to Edmonton, this might be the ideal time to knock on their door and see if they're available.
Okay. Councillor Auld.
I was just gonna, just a friendly amendment to the motion, just be either, have the option for in-person or virtually. I would do the virtual, but probably not go to the city.
Absolutely, that can be added to my motion.
Okay, so just clarification on your motion, if you could, please.
Gosh, I don't know anymore. That any councillor who wishes to attend the Brownlee event, either in Calgary or Edmonton in person or virtually, to let Tracy administration know.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to correspondence for information. We have, sorry.
Should we address Councillor Deputy Mayor Shipple's request to go up early as well?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that now for sure.
I think that's a good idea. Whether it needs to be a separate day or if you could tie it into the day, I'm not sure what the hours are, but I think that would be a great suggestion.
I would think tying it into a trip up there would make the most sense. Then you're not doing a special trip for that or doing it twice. Councillor Moot, I saw your finger going for the button, but okay, Councillor Moot.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I second guess myself sometimes. But how is there a cost savings for having half the council go up to to be in person here, wouldn't it just be cost savings to drive to Edmonton to meet with a developer on a day rather than put some people up overnight in Edmonton?
I think to answer that, if you're already going up anyhow, and you're gonna have to be there overnight.
Okay.
Add the meeting to it as well. And
If
that's
you're
just-
going anyways.
If you're going
to be in
anyways,
person.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I guess I would just question that only because I believe that there's been staff, the CAO or planning, I'm not too sure, with these meetings that you guys have been having. And if they're not planning on attending in person, that's an added cost to send admin for the day. Right?
And I think it would almost be something we need to discuss. Is that something that everyone can even make that day? If not, then it's a moot point. Councillor Hutchinson.
I guess I would then ask who is planning on attending virtually.
Councillor Capero.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I would like to attend, but I would be virtually.
Councillor Musker.
Yeah, I would prefer to attend virtually as well, and if we're going to meet with developers to talk to them about land holdings here in Rocky, we just make that a separate trip.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
I mean, I was looking at my schedule, and originally I was going to go to the one in Calgary, but I would prefer to do the virtual with council, so that would be my preference. So have we cleared that up, Councillor Auld?
Yep,
Okay.
we can do it on a separate day.
Yeah.
I think it's important to get it at that doorstep for sure, so.
Okay, thank you.
Make it a plan.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to correspondence for information, the three items we have in there. Any questions on what we have in there? And if not, just looking for a motion to accept as information. Councillor Auld.
If there's no discussion on that, I would make the motion that we accept 9.1 and 9.3 as information.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion. Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 10, 10.1, the activity reports for the administration. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mayor. So if council has any questions on any reports, we're more than happy to answer.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So I want to talk about the planning and community development report, and more importantly, building permit values, and the 23 comparison to the 24 comparison, and how last year we were at 12 million and this year we're at 14.3 million. But the most unique part is last year we were at $5 million in government and institution, which are non-taxable properties. This year we're at 146,000. So we've gained substantial values in terms of properties that we can tax this year in development permits. And I think that's kudos to our town's growth. And I just want to make a mention that that's positive growth in our community, and thanks to the development department, as well as the town, to see that growth. So hats off to see that. That's great numbers.
Okay, thank you for that positive comment. Any more questions, comments, concerns on the activity reports? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. A second comment I have, and that's about Stuff the Cruiser program, and congrats to those people for what they've done. I drove by the Sobeys and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on because all the lights are flashing and I forgot what the day was. But long story short, here again, that is a driven program from our people here in our town office, so that's another positive thing for filling the food bank. So again, kudos to them, and I think we owe them a thank you for running that program. And this year, they're up $2,000 over last year in terms of donations, so I think that's awesome numbers. So again, another positive event in our community.
Yeah, very, very, very well done, for sure.
So I'd ask administration to thank those two departments. Or we should ask administration.
Okay, any other comments? If not, just looking for a motion to accept the activity reports as information. Councillor Musker.
Thank you. I'll make the motion to accept the activity reports as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion? Call out to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the action list. Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So just going through the outstanding, CAO performance evaluation, it's in progress. Police Act amendments, that letter has been sent. Tax forfeiture property, that's in progress. Election bylaw, council completed that today. Loan for Football Association, that received first reading today, and amend will advertise, because then we wait 60 days before council can proceed on that. The affordable housing, that was a discussion today and will be brought back to council in January. And those are the items.
That's it? Okay. Any, Councillor Auld?
Just regarding the tax forfeiture property. In the interim, till we decide what we're doing with that property, or will we be opening it up for additional parking?
So it's not our property legally yet, so we wouldn't take that step. What we have done is recognizing it's pretty much abandoned property. We are taking over the cleaning of the snow, of the sidewalks and stuff like that, just for public safety purposes.
Okay, any other comments on the action list? If not, just looking for a motion to accept the action list for information. Councillor Auld?
I'll make that motion that we accept the action list for December 17th as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? Call out to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Administrative inquiries. Does anyone have any administrative inquiries? None. Okay. So we'll move on to notice of motion. Does anyone have any notices of motion today? Seeing none, okay, then I will call a 5-minute recess and then we can go into closed session. session. Okay, welcome back to the regular council meeting. We are going to move into closed session, so I'm just looking for a motion, Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you. Also make a motion, we move to an in-camera closed session.
Okay, thank you. Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. We're now in closed. Okay, we are resuming our regular council meeting, and we just have one motion coming out of closed session. Councillor Capero.
Thank you. I will make the motion that we accept the CAO dialogue as information.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? To call it to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried, and with our agenda being concluded, I will adjourn the meeting at 12:16. Thank you, everyone.